Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest is our MP, Bruce Hyer. So Bruce, when we took a break, we started talking about taxes. So this is a big issue for everybody. You know, most people you talk to say, I don't want to pay any more taxes. And of course, our politicians have really capitalized on this and
responded to it.
Yes. And said, we will cut your taxes. So now you're telling me, though, that maybe we're headed in the wrong direction. Where should we be going around our tax policies?
Well, let's go to the facts first. Taxes to the middle class and poorer people and small business have not been cut. They've actually been growing relatively. And for the first time in Canadian history here in 2014, over half of all the taxes collected in Canada are from income taxes. So that's a myth that our taxes are being cut. The taxes that have been cut are those to large multinational corporations. And so when Harper took office, the tax rate was similar to the US, and it was 22%, and now it's 15%. So it's the lowest corporate taxes in the developed world, and Mr. Flaherty, when he was alive, was fond of bragging about that. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't brag about it because we can do good things with taxes. One of my favorite quotes is from Oliver Wendell Holmes, the famous jurist. And he said, I like paying taxes. They buy me civilization. Well, the problem with these big cuts to large corporate taxes, like to big oil, big banks, big insurance companies, is they're not tied to any kind of criteria for investment or jobs. No criteria at all, no strings attached. Here's a gift, assuming that they would spend it. Well, that's not what's happening. It's going to 10 and 15 and $20 million CEO salaries, and it's going to offshore tax havens in Panama and Bahamas and other places. It just isn't happening. So, and as you may know, EI premiums are going up, and that's another tax because they're not paying it out. So big surplus is building up in the EI accounts. So we're basically taxing the poor and letting the large corporations off the hook. And they're treating small businesses very differently from large businesses. So there have not been tax cuts to small business. There was a tiny one a couple of years ago, but generally speaking, the tax burden is shifting from large corporations onto small business and the average Canadian.
So, Bruce, I'm confused because you've just laid out a number of the facts of why it's actually good to have those taxes coming in, but we have a federal government.
If they're well spent,
Yeah.
I mean, we want responsible, and there is a limit. We can't do everything that we want to do or hope to do. That's for sure. It is a shame. One of the largest ironies of my job is many people accost me in the grocery store or the mall. Mr. Hyer, I want to talk to you. I want this service and that service and my pension increased and better health care and fix the pothole in front of my house. And they say, and also, I want you to cut my taxes. And they don't see the inconsistency, and it's interesting. So I don't know how they balance their household budgets. We all have to stay within our budget. We have to be responsible, but you can't spend more than you bring in. But if you don't bring it in, you can't spend it. It's pretty obvious to me.
So why do you think our government is continuing to move in that direction to reduce the taxes primarily on big corporations to the negative benefit, the negative impact really on Canadian citizens? Why do they do that?
Well, there's two possible explanations. One is they're looking out for their friends, and it's quite deliberate and dishonest. And the other one is ideological, that some of them at least really seem to believe in trickle-down economics, where if the people at the top make huge amounts of money, that it'll somehow trickle down to the rest of us. Well, I know an awful lot of people these days who are not feeling very trickled down upon.
Mm-hmm. And the numbers I've seen is really a growing pile of cash that the corporations are sitting on and not spending.
They're either exporting it or sitting on it. You're absolutely correct. And ironically, it's not big business that have ever created the jobs in Canada for the most part. Over the last several decades, over many decades, the average number of jobs created by small business has been 87% of all new jobs have actually been created by small businesses. And so we keep worshiping at the altar of big business, but it's not really where a diversification happens. It's not where innovation usually happens, and it's certainly not where the employment happens.
So, I'm still confused because I see that our federal government doesn't seem to really be reflecting the values that normal Canadians have. I know when I talk to folks, people are usually pretty generous. If you express a need for support, and I know with my condition, I need help with various things, and there's always someone willing to help out. They care about their neighbors. They actually care about the environment.
Especially in Thunder Bay.
Especially
one
in
of the
Thunder Bay.
highest rate of volunteerism and public giving in all of Canada.
So why aren't our governments then, our federal government in particular, where you're involved, reflecting those same values back to us, I wonder?
Well, this gets back to where we started at the beginning of the program. We have a democracy gap.
Yeah.
And unfortunately today, MPs may be well-intended, but most of them work for the parties, not for the people. It's that simple. So when you have a Stephen Harper, when you have people that are close to big business and are really representing them and have their thumb on their own MPs and their own backbenchers and tell them how to vote, what to speak, give them their speaking notes publicly and privately, that's what you end up with, unfortunately.
So with the centralization of power, the Prime Minister is in charge of really the whole government, and they're kind of giving everybody their notes to play out on the stage. Is that?
We've had this flawed electoral system for a long time, which gave the Prime Minister's office too much power. But no one has ever abused it in the way that the current government has, the way that Stephen Harper has. He's all about power and control. He's driven by ideology, and instead of having policies based on science and data, we have science based on ideology, or pseudoscience based on ideology. It's quite a dramatic shift.
So we're slowly winding down on our show here. So what can our viewers do around this? So, yep, we got an election coming up in 18 months. Is there other things that they can do to try to influence the direction of our government, of the people we elect?
Well, use the metaphor you want. The one that many people use is squeaky wheels get the grease. So I realize that many people are discouraged by politics today and the style of many politicians. But the answer is not to stop voting. The answer is not to walk away and wring your hands and say, oh, those guys, they're just terrible. It's to get involved. There are many ways to get involved. Get involved in your riding association. Help pick your candidate. Pick somebody you respect and who you think will fight for you and stand up for you. Get involved in writing letters to, one good letter to the Chronicle Journal, the Globe and Mail, the Ottawa Citizen can have quite a powerful effect. The social media now, the internet, emails, Twitter, Facebook, are very powerful tools, and I urge people to use them. And the really big one is young people. Young people hold, as they did in the States when they elected Barack Obama 2 elections ago, they hold the balance of power if they choose to use it.
Bruce, thank you very much for coming on the show and the suggestions. We encourage your feedback. We're just in the process of setting up a Facebook page for community conversations. We welcome and encourage you to provide your ideas and feedback. You can contact me on my email, smantis@tbaytel.net. Encourage you to join us next week. We have Paul Pugh, City Councilor, who will be talking about the newly adopted poverty strategy here in Thunder Bay. Thank you very much for watching the show, and have a great day.
That's what we all gotta say.